ready to start our one-on-one interview with Dr. Scott Christie from the Cheer District. Dr. Scott Christie, are you on the line?
I am here. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays. It is so good to have you. So good to have you. Well, for those who don't know, Dr. Scott Christie, obviously he's from the Cheer District, but he is obviously a doctor of sports medicine. He is trying to put the science into cheerleading, and I love that. I love that. I'm a big sports fan. I love football. I love basketball. I love baseball. I love the fact that, you watch ESPN and things like that. You see them really break down the sport of football, of basketball, of baseball, of soccer. And I love that you are doing the same. So if you could, man, kind of tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm from the Toronto, Canada area. I've been a cheerleader or involved in cheerleading for over 30 years, either as an athlete myself or as a coach, and then obviously as a healthcare practitioner dealing with all the injuries that you see. And at one point I owned my own fitness facility and worked as a sports scientist. Which I've been doing for 30 years, and I continue to do that now. I'm just focused more in the cheerleading world with all the research right now.
Nice. So what brought you into cheer? I mean, obviously we know you did cheerleading. Was that the reason? Immediately you had the science down. Did you just want to go the cheerleading route with everything you knew, with the knowledge that you learned?
Well, there's a big void in the industry. Like you already said it right when you were introducing, all these other sports have a lot of science to kind of throw into the athletes and into the practices and into the performances. Cheerleading, we're still kind of behind the eight ball a little bit on I guess a lot of it from what I can see looking at the research. So I just figured I'm going to take all my knowledge that I have from all the other sports. And then I have a lot of pretty fancy lab equipment, and I've just been doing my own research and applying a lot of the physiology to the sport to try and improve the athletes, to try to improve the practices and reduce injuries. Right.
Wow. Well, I want to talk about a couple topics of discussion. And, myself, obviously you don't know this. I've cheered for a very long time, and I've had a few injuries myself. I've had ACL surgery 3 times. I've torn my Achilles. I've had 7 surgeries in total. Not fun. And so I really want to talk about what athletes can do before, during, and after practice to really take care of themselves. I think a lot of times, as I watch coaches coach athletes warm up, get ready, there's a lot of things that skip. There's a lot of things that's missed. And so I'm wondering, what is it that we can do to better our athletes, to make them more aware of what they can do to make themselves better before, during, and after practice?
So basically, if we're talking like right before practice, I think the important part there is to make sure you're warmed up appropriately. Now, there isn't a lot of research that shows that a proper warm-up reduces your injury risk at each practice, but if you have a well thought out warm-up over time, it actually helps reduce imbalances and get the athletes warmed up properly. And from that, we kind of see in other sports that injuries get reduced, especially we see this in soccer. So that kind of stuff, like doing static stretching right before you were going to do like a standing full, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because that static stretching actually reduces your power output, which means you might not get as much height and you might under-rotate, or something's going to happen. So generally speaking, if you're going to do static stretching, do it before your warm-up start at practice. And then you can kind of get into all your dynamic warm-up, and any of the negative effects of the static stretching will have worn off before you start doing your power activities.
Will you do me a favor?
That's kind of the, go ahead.
For those who don't know, will you give us an example of what a static stretch looks like, sounds like?
So if you're lying on the ground and you're going to stretch out your hamstring, a static stretch would be holding it for a prolonged period of time. So that, like, you feel a little bit of soreness or an achiness while you're holding the stretch. That's typically what you would see, is what we would classify as a static stretch. That kind of stuff for cheerleading is really important because of the scorps and the scales and the toe touches and the herky jumps. Like, you need good flexibility, but you need to know when to do it. And you need to realize that it does decrease power output if you were to do something right immediately following that type of stretch.
Got it. Is there anything that, when I think about what happens at practice, I'm actually going to back up a little bit more. or maybe fast forward to after practice. Is there anything that athletes with their parents that they can do at home to kind of, do a little bit more proactive action with the body to take care of themselves?
So that's my biggest push, and that's why I co-founded Cheer District with Brianne. Workout. So the types of workouts that people do, that's really what we're pushing. For me right now, it's just about try to get people to at least work out. So I don't care so much about what they do right at the moment. Let's just be consistent with the workouts, because every other sport does it to prepare for the practices and for the performances. For cheerleading, they don't. On top of that, there are definitely more efficient ways to work out, and meaning you don't need to train. You don't need to train until you can't actually do the movement anymore, and that actually has a negative effect on improving your conditioning. Meaning, if you are going to do squats, you don't do 400 squats, because that actually has the wrong effect as to what we're trying to do. You need to get stronger, and you need to get more powerful, and that's kind of what I'm pushing to do in between practices.
Got it. I see a lot of times when I watch practices, I'm talking about world's athletes, because obviously that's what everybody wants to get to. They want to get to that level, that caliber of athlete. You see some of these world's practices that are running 10 and 12 full outs back to back to back with conditioning in between, and breaking down the body, and I can understand what the coaches are thinking. They're saying, hey, let's break them down so we can build them back up. What are your thoughts on that during the practice type of mentality, that workout?
Yeah, this is a huge discussion, and not everybody likes to hear what I have to say, but when you look at it, it's different. If you're talking about these athletes just come down to Disney World and this is the first week they've ever been together, there's not a lot you can do. You need to get the reps under your belt. But if you're talking about teams that are preparing for Worlds and they get to practice during the course of the year, no, you definitely don't. And whether it's a Worlds team, whether it's not a Worlds team, when you run the routine, you run it, generally speaking. Now, back in my day, we did run the routine more than once in a day, but right now you're running it once, and it's a 2.5 minute routine. So you have to consider the amount. There's not that much fatigue in a 2.5 minute routine compared to the amount of fatigue that's if you run the routine 10 times in a practice.
Right.
So those kind of running the routine like that is definitely increasing the risk of an athlete's injury. It's also causing the wrong type of conditioning for cheerleading. It's when I look at the body, I look at energy systems and I look at muscle fiber types. So you're thinking a Ferrari versus maybe some kind of economy car. If you keep running the routine several times over and over and over, you're actually moving further away from the Ferrari. I think that would be the best example I could give.
Well, I like to see myself as the Ferrari. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So to do that, you need to be fresh.
I want to. Can I be a Lamborghini?
Yeah, you can definitely be a Lamborghini. You just need to put the right fuel in, and just need to practice properly.
Heard that. Put the right fuel in. I don't know how much of this you dive into, but when it comes to, we know the physical, the nutrition side of it. Do you see that? We don't need to dive too deep, but do you see that as a big factor that plays in the cheerleading athlete's body?
Yeah, both. So there's two things. You want to add sleep into that equation. So we look at the physical, the mental, we look at nutrition, and then you take a look at the sleep. Nutrition and sleep are things that we have a lot of control over for the most part.
Right.
And those are probably two of the biggest things for overall performance. So we always use the analogy, you want to put jet fuel in a jet. You want to make sure that all the parts are working properly. You want to make sure you don't have any stress, and you want to make sure you're getting about 8 to 9 hours of sleep so that you can train, so that you can condition between practices. All of these things just make you a better all-around athlete.
Right. Wow. Goodness gracious! I can't imagine the things that you've seen and the science that you've broken down. Is there anything specific that when you're thinking about these athletes, or you're thinking about what you can do, or the information that you can pass out? Is there anything specific that comes to mind that you may see on a regular basis?
So to me, I would I know I guess it's specific times right now because of COVID, and so we can't do the same things we used to. From that aside, I'm just going to recommend take the conditioning that you do the last 5 or 10 minutes in practice, take it away. Don't bother. You're just wasting time. You're causing a lot more soreness and making it hard for the athletes to recover for any conditioning they do in between practices.
Right.
And sometimes you're not even allowing them to get ready for the next practice because of that little, I don't know what you want to call it, but you know at the end of practice the type of exercises that people are doing. They're creating a lot of fatigue. They're creating a lot of muscle soreness. Like my biggest take-home point would be get rid of that. There is so many skills you need to work on in cheerleading. You don't need to be spending 10 to 15 minutes. You've got your basket tosses, pyramids, stunting, dance, tumbling. You can fill your practices. You don't need to be putting in that conditioning. And plus, I don't like the conditioning that I see that's being done.
You know what? I'm actually we're gonna come back to that just because I want to know more about that thought. You know, what kind of conditioning are you seeing, and what kind of conditioning would you rather coaches and athletes be putting in front of you? We are going to take a small break. We're going to take a small break. Let's talk a little bit about the Beyond 5, 6, 7, 8. Privilege to connect with a good friend of mine, Mr. Logan Sherrill. He currently lives in Dallas, Texas, and he works at Champion Cheer All-Stars. Him and I got to sit on the phone and have a conversation about just the pandemic in it whole, and what what his kids were doing, how his kids were responding, how he was able to, or if he was able to kind of get their mentality in the right space at the right time. And so we got the chance to talk a lot, and he said, you know what, I really want to do something special to take these athletes' minds into the right direction. Away from just winning titles, jackets, banners, trophies, being a cheer celebrity, so to speak, but to learn that the sport is beyond 5, 6, 7, 8. And Mr. Christie, Dr. Christie.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I think what you have done is beyond 5, 6, 7, 8. I think you are a living testament to, you can be in the sport all day long, but you have taken something that, you studied and you've grown from, and you're bringing it back to the sport. I think you are immediately a living testament of the Beyond 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not sure if you know anything about the foundation, but we are raising money through the Beyond 5, 6, 7, 8 fund for UNICEF and human trafficking, just because, the whole purpose, the point is to be bigger and better than just this sport that we love, and we get to come back to it day in and day out. But it's a very special cause. So anybody that's out there watching right now, do me a favor. Right underneath, you can go to a link. You can click on the Karma Returns shirt. It's a Beyond 5, 6, 7, 8 shirt that was designed by Karma Returns. I absolutely love the shirt. I have one for myself, for my wife, for my little baby. But every single dime, every single penny, it goes straight to UNICEF and the funds for human trafficking. So do me a favor. I want you to go on social media right now. Go on YouTube. Go on Facebook. Go on Instagram. Go anywhere you want, and go give us a testimonial of who you are, where you're from, something that's happened great to you in the sport of cheerleading because of the sport of cheerleading, and why you still do it today.
In lockdown and with all of our strict restrictions and things like that, what made you hold on to cheer and made you excited to come back again?
I think just the family aspect of cheer, especially Zooms and everything like that, it made our team more bonded and made us more connected. So there was more of a family vibe to come back to, which was very exciting and really nice.
I started doing cheer because I always watched it and thought it looked like so much fun, and everyone was always enjoying themselves. It was like really family team vibe and everything, and that's why I've stayed for so long, because I just got hooked on it. Over lockdown, it was a little bit tricky because obviously you're not seeing everyone as much as you used to, but seeing everyone online on Zoom and everything, it was like a massive break from real life, and it was just like that hour or two a week where you can come in and still see your friends and still get to train together. So like kind of brought us closer as a team. So when we came back into the gym, it was like we never left.
cheer because I sucked at gymnastics, and there was a cheer team at my gym, and this is like a lot of fun and a lot more laid back and relaxed than gym, so that's why I started cheer. I still do cheer because I like the person that it's made me into. I feel like it's made me the best version of myself. I'm the most confident and the most fun-loving and outgoing when I'm here, and I take more responsibility for myself and what I do, so that's what kind of kept me going through lockdown, knowing that I was coming back to a place that made me into the best version of myself with my
Give your testimony on why it's beyond 5, 6, 7, 8 for you. Thank you.